Hi, in today's video, we are going to talk about segregated witness. Let's see what it is. So, if we talk about a Bitcoin blockchain, a typical block of a Bitcoin blockchain is of size 1 MB. Okay, so in this 1 MB, we have the block number, some different fields like, as we have discussed, timestamp, nonce, and other fields as well. As well as we have a lot of transactions. Definitely, I'm showing only 3 transactions here, but definitely there are more transactions here. These are the transactions ID, by the way, and this is our previous hash, this is our hash. So you can see that this 1 MB of block is containing so many things, right? And not only this 1 MB block also contains some more information about the transactions, because we cannot only depend upon the transaction ID, right? We need some more information about the transaction, like who is doing this transaction, to whom this transaction has been done, the amount of Bitcoin that has been sent, as well as the signature and public key. Why do we require signature and public key? As we have discussed in our previous video of private and public key, where we talked about that signature and public key is required so that the other person can verify whether this transaction is actually being done by me or not. By me as in, like, in this case, X is doing some transaction. So to verify whether X has actually done this transaction or not, signature and public key is required, and we have discussed this in the previous video, right? So you can see that transaction is involving so many different fields also. And this script sig, means this signature as well as this public key, acquires around 60 to 65% of space. Now just imagine, we have an MB block where 60 to 65% of space is actually being acquired by this signature and by this public key, which is not a good thing. Why? Because if this thing is acquiring around 60 to 65% of space, then we have few space left in order to have our transactions. Means, if we will cover this amount of space just by its nature and public key, then we will have only few transactions, right? Because if this is acquiring 60 to 65%, then we are left with only, I think, 30 to 35% of space for our transactions, which we do not want, right? We want to accommodate more number of transaction to our block. Why? So that more number of processing can take place, more number of transaction can be solved, means can be processed in per second, like in the case of Visa, which is actually solving processing around thousands of transactions per second. And we also want the same with blockchain, right? With Bitcoin blockchain, because if we will process less number of transactions per second, then people will not be good, right? People will not be happy that, let's say, they have done some transaction and now they have to wait for, let's say, 3 to 4 days. And nobody wants this type of thing, right? Nobody wants to wait for 3 to 4 days for a simple transaction, which can be done using, via bank transfer, via Visa, in just few milliseconds. So blockchain community decided something. What they thought, that instead of having this 60 to 65% of a space, this SigWit, this thing is actually called as SigWit, okay? SigWit as in segregated witness, okay? So SigWit is segregated witness, because this is the witness that are doing this transaction. And what the blockchain community thought, that why not to remove this thing and said, like, let's send this thing separately. Let's do not send this thing, this 60 to 65% script sig within this block. Instead of this, why not to send this separately? So first you will have a block in which you will have all the transaction. Okay, so you can fully use the block for filling up the transactions. And once you have filled up the transaction, once you are done with the filling of transaction, now you can send this script sig afterwards. So by this, we are able to accommodate more number of transaction, by which the miners will be able to process more number of transaction per second, and by which people will be more happy in the Bitcoin community. So this was the suggestion that was adopted, and due to which we have this thing, this signature and public key, which is also known as segregated. By segregated, because now they have been segregated, means they have been detached from this, and now they are being sent separately in the Bitcoin network. Okay, so this is something very important to know, that now you have these things, signature and public key, as a separate entity, and this transaction field and all these fields as a separate entity. Once your transaction is filled up, like once your block is created, then you send these segregated witnesses or script sig after that. Okay, so this is done so that we can have more space for our transaction, so that we can process more number of transactions per second. Okay, so this is all about segregated witness. I hope you liked this video. If you have liked this video, please click on that like button. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe to the channel because I'm regularly going to upload new blockchain courses on this channel. And please, if you want to talk to me or interact with me, you can interact with me on Instagram at Corita21. And if you want to join our blockchain developer community, which is currently having 2000 plus community members, you can join that. Link is given in the description of this video. Meet you soon, guys, in the next video. Till then, bye bye. Take care.